Marty's Secret by Diane Rayner. I grew up believing that Christmas was a time when strange and wonderful things happened, when wise and royal visitors came riding, when at midnight the barnyard animals talked to one another, and in the light of a fabulous star, God came down to us as a child. Christmas to me has always been a time of enchantment, and never more so than the year my son Marty was 8. That was the year my children and I moved into a cozy trailer home in a forested area just outside Redmond, Washington. As the holiday approached, our spirits were light, not to be dampened even by the winter rains that swept down Puget Sound to douse our home and make our floors muddy. Throughout that December, Marty had been the most spirited and busiest of us all. He was my youngest, a cheerful boy, blond and playful, with a quaint habit of looking up at you and cocking his head like a puppy when you spoke to him. The reason for this was that Marty was deaf in his left ear, but it was a condition he never complained about. For weeks, I had been watching Marty. I knew something was going on that he was not telling me about. I saw how eagerly he made his bed and took out the trash and carefully set the table and helped Rick and Pam prepare dinner before I got home from work. I saw how he silently collected his allowance and tucked it away, not spending a cent of it. I had no idea what all this quiet activity was about, but I suspected it had something to do with Kenny. Kenny was Marty's good friend, and ever since they had found each other in the springtime, they were seldom apart. If you called to one, you got them both. Their world was in the meadow, a horse pasture, broken by a small winding stream where they caught frogs and snakes and searched for arrowheads or hidden treasures, or spent afternoons feeding peanuts to squirrels. Times were hard for our family, and we had to do some scrimping to get by. Thanks to my job as a meat wrapper and a lot of ingenuity, we managed to have elegance on a shoestring. But not Kenny's family. They were desperately poor, and his mother was struggling to feed and clothe her 2 children. They were a good, solid family, but Kenny's mom was a proud woman, and she had strict rules. How we worked as we did each year to make our home festive for the holidays. Ours was a handcrafted Christmas of gifts hidden away and ornaments strung about the place. Marty and Kenny sometimes sat still at the table long enough to help make cornucopias or weave baskets for the tree. But then one whispered to the other, and they were out the door in a flash and sliding cautiously under the electric fence to the horse pasture that separated our home from Kenny's. One night, shortly before Christmas, when my hands were deep in pepper knocker dough, shaping nut-like Danish cookies heavily spiced with cinnamon, Marty came to me and said in a tone mixed with pleasure and pride, "Mom, I bought Kenny a Christmas present. Want to see it?" So that's what he'd been up to, I thought. It's something he wanted for a long, long time, Ma. After carefully wiping his hands on a dish towel, he pulled a small box from his pocket. Lifting the lid, I gazed at the pocket compass that my son had been saving all these allowances to buy. "It's a lovely gift, Martin," I said. But even as I spoke, a disturbing thought came to mind. I knew how Kenny's mother felt about their poverty. They could barely afford to exchange gifts among themselves, and giving presents to each other was out of the question. I'm sure she would not permit her son to receive something he could not return in kind. Gently, carefully, I talked over the problem with Marty. He understood. "I know, Mom, I know. But what if it was a secret? What if they never found out who gave it?" I didn't know how to answer him. The day before Christmas was rainy and cold and gray. The 3 kids and I all fell over one another as we elbowed our way about the house, putting finishing touches on our secret Christmas gifts and preparing for family and friends who would drop by. Night settled in. The rain continued. I looked out the window over the sink and felt an odd sadness. How mundane the rain seemed for a Christmas Eve. Would wise men come on such a night? I doubted it. It seemed to me that strange and wonderful things happen only on clear nights, nights when one could at least see a star in the heavens. I turned from the window, and as I checked on the ham and bread warming in the oven, I saw Marty slip out the door. He wore his coat over his pajamas, and he clutched a tiny, colorfully wrapped box. Down through the soggy pasture he went, and then under the electric fence and across the yard to Kenny's house, up the steps on tiptoe, shoes squishing, opened the screen door just a crack, and placed the gift on the doorstep. And then he took a deep breath, reached for the doorbell, pressed on it hard. Quickly, Marty turned and ran down the steps and across the yard, and in a wild race to get away unnoticed, suddenly he banged into the electric fence. The shock sent him reeling. He lay stunned on the wet ground. His body tingled, and he gasped for breath. And then slowly, weakly, confused and frightened, he began the grueling trip back home. "Marty," I cried as he stumbled through the door. "What happened?" His lower lip quivered and his eyes brimmed. "I forgot about the fence and it knocked me down." I huddled his muddy body to me. He was still dazed, and there was a red mark beginning to blister on his face from his mouth to his ear. Quickly, I treated the blister with a warm cup of cocoa, soothed him. Marty's bright spirits returned. I tucked him in bed, and just before he fell asleep, he looked up at me and said, "Mom, Kenny didn't see me. I'm sure he didn't see me." That Christmas Eve, I went to bed unhappy and puzzled. It seemed such a cruel thing to happen to a little boy who was doing what the Lord wants us all to do, giving to others, and giving in secret at that. I did not sleep well that night. Somewhere deep inside, I think I must have been feeling the disappointment that Christmas had come, and it had just been an ordinary problem-filled night. No mysterious enchantment at all. But I was wrong. By morning, the rain stopped, and the sun shone, and the streak on Marty's face was red, but I could tell that the burn was not serious. We opened our presents, and soon, not unexpectedly, Kenny was knocking on the door, eager to show Marty his new compass and tell about the mystery of its arrival. It was plain that Kenny did not suspect Marty at all, and while the two of them talked, Marty just smiled and smiled. And then I noticed that while the two boys were comparing their Christmas, nodding and gesturing and chatting away, Marty was not cocking his head when Kenny was talking. Marty seemed to be listening with his deaf ear. Weeks later, the report came from the school nurse, verifying what Marty and I already knew. Marty now had complete hearing in both ears. How Marty regained his hearing and how he still has it remains a mystery that doctors suspect the shock from the electric fence was somehow responsible. Perhaps so. Whatever the reason, I'm thankful to God for the good exchange of gifts that was made that night. So you see, strange and wonderful things still happen on the night of our Lord's birth, and one does not have to have a clear night either to follow a fabulous star.